Welcome to another episode coming at you from chooseyourrelationships.com, author of Love Can't Wait, which can be found on amazon.com. Today I have a special guest. She's an author of a best selling book, Seen and Unheard, a professional life coach, NLP and EFT, who motivates and builds confidence in women who struggle with being seen and heard in their own personal and business lives, turning her own life around from being broke and broken at 57. She has made her mission to turn her mess into her message. My special guest today is Patricia Love. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for taking time to do this. So, where are you from originally?
Well, originally, I'm actually coming to you from Seattle, Washington. I'm sitting in my car right now. A woman on the move, as usual.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was actually raised in the Pacific Northwest primarily. I've lived in different areas of the United States, but I'm primarily from the Pacific Northwest. And it's actually sunny here today. It's getting a little sunshine.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I've been to Seattle many times. It rains a lot and it gets cold.
What are you talking about? Well, let's see. Where are you coming from?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, well, I don't. You guys get some cold. We actually
Yeah.
only get when it gets to be freezing here. That's unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we're used to like 40 degrees. I'm used to wearing a light raincoat, for just some drizzle. This year's been kind of weird, but typically not too hot, not too cold. So I'm kind of liking it because where you're from, you get a little hot, a little humid sometimes.
I like it that way.
Alrighty then.
So how did you get started? How do you become an NLP coach, a professional life coach? How did you get started on
Well,
this?
interesting enough, I've always, well, just to take it way back, my dad was a salesperson, and the best way I could get his attention was to become a salesperson myself, even at a young age of negotiation of my allowance and everything else, because I needed to, as a young girl, you might say, always wanting your father's emotional love and attention. I was constantly trying to get it, and I found that was the best way for me to get his love and attention, because he was not one of those that came from the era of unemotional. They just didn't show emotion at all, or hugging, or loving and caring. So it was a real interesting way to grow up. But I found that when I negotiated with him in sales, that I got his attention. So it was interesting, and I kind of got into the sales because actually the way my childhood and my young adulthood was, I was not really encouraged or inspired to get an education, to do any of that. So the best thing I could do was sell. And so I learned really early how to, what we call, put a mask on, as a lot of women do, to be something else than what they really are. So that's kind of how it started. And then I ended up doing sales, and I got into retail sales, and then also I got into real estate sales, which I'm still in now. But there's a lot that happened in between there that's kind of led to that. What you mentioned at the beginning was being broken at the age of 57. Divorced. My husband left me for a younger woman. My mom had died. My finances were in the tube, because even though I was really, really good at making money, and I think there's a lot of men and women like this, they're really, really good at making money, but they don't know how to they're also very good at spending it. They're not really smart at what to do with it. So when the real estate business kind of took a dive, along with everything else around me in my life, I was at the bottom of the barrel, you might say, spending too much. I had $140,000 in debt. I was another 40 or 50 pounds overweight. And I just kind of came to the bottom that I had to make some choices. And I chose to take my power back, you might say, that I allowed not only my families and parents and friends and men and everything else to take from me in some ways, I decided to take it back and move forward. And so I reinvented myself at the age of 57. Uh, Continued with real estate, but did it in a different way because I had to pivot and shift, you might say, because of the way the real estate business was at that time in 2008, 9, and 10, at that area. And so I just took it by the things, and I just kept on moving forward and became an NLP, which is a neurolinguistics practitioner, which is kind of deals with behaviors, interrupting behaviors of
Mm.
people, especially with that has to do with the mind, and an EFT tapping, and a life coach and a confidence coach. So I've taken it, turned everything around, and now we won't need to go to the age I am now. You can figure it out if you go backwards, but I'm living my best life, and I don't have any reservations about anything. I found my own confidence, and I say that along with the other women. It's always a journey. It's always something. You're always learning, but I can definitely say that every night I go to bed with peace in my heart.
Mm. So what do you mean when you say broken? How'd you know you were broken?
Oh God, it was like when I guess broken to so many people, or to different people would mean different things.
Mm.
To me, broken was I just couldn't keep going on the same way I was going. I just kept repeating all the same things over and over and over again. And that when I say that, it was like I'd make money, lose money, I'd spend money, I'd I'd get into relationships and they'd fall apart because I was on my third marriage. So
Mm.
there was just things that I got to the point where when everything came to a head, and besides that, I was drinking a little bit too much also. In addition to that, that it just one day, and it just said, I just can't do this anymore. And that's what I mean by broken. I can't go on the same way and live a life that makes me happy, because I was not happy. I was just wearing this mask all the time, showing everybody to the world that I was, everything was fine, everything was great. I'm driving the big car, I'm driving making the money, but never being vulnerable or wanting to be, that anybody find out about that I'm actually human, and
Mm.
also and talking about relationships. I was also a woman in mostly a man's world almost all of my life in business,
Mm.
and always having to keep that stiff upper lip and show no emotion, because that would be, very too girly.
Yeah, in some
So,
spaces that'd be considered a form of weakness.
a lot of, a form of weakness as far as showing emotion. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, in certain
Yeah,
work
I mean,
environments.
it totally would, and that would be a sign of weakness. And to me, that's what it was. I got to keep a stiff upper lip. I got to keep going. I got to compartmentalize anything that's happened to me, whether it be traumas or deaths. Because I lost my sister. I'd also had very sexual encounters that against my will, you might say, and so I had to compartmentalize a lot of different things. Um, but my self-esteem was just, on the floor. So all of that just kind of brings you to a head of being broken, and broke along the way, because now I have no money, and now I got to figure out if I'm going to have a, a roof over my head.
Mm. So how did you get the idea to become a life coach?
Well, interesting enough, even in my careers of, whether it be even when I was younger, I've always cared about people. I've always
Mm.
cared. And I've always liked mentoring and giving back to extent. Not at the time, not coaching or anything like that, necessarily making money, but I remember giving my time, even when I was in real estate, because been in real estate, still technically in real estate, is one of my businesses, full time. I still mentor realtors. I
Okay.
still like letting them know that they can be the best they, if they want to be. It's a choice, and to help build their confidence, to give them that leg up, and not be their enemy. When I say enemy, when in real estate, sometimes it's all about you, and it's against the other one. You're always competing. I didn't want that to be. I wanted to be that competitor who's on my other side, to be just as good as I was. and to show them and teach them that they can enjoy and have a great life in real estate too. So I've always had that. So when it came down to coaching myself, you might say I had to start coaching myself. I had to be my best coach, right? But then I finally started to say, you know what? I now want to help others and coach others. And so I give back also in scholarships to people that I coach, but in addition to making it a career, in addition to my real estate. But I do work with a lot of realtors who are women.
So it sounds like you got tired of being sick and tired. And
I got tired of being sick and tired. That's exactly what it was. I get tired of it. I got tired of not having what I call my power or my confidence. Because growing up as a woman with, you know, when you grow up and you're beaten down with images all over the place of, you know, you're not perfect enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not good enough, you're not this. It starts.
It's the media.
It starts to get into yourselves. It starts to like, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Well, maybe I'm not so pretty. You know, and so and then you have a few relationships that weren't maybe the best relationships. That didn't really, encourage me either, So it just starts to make you feel down. And there's a lot of women like that just, they've been beaten down mentally.
Yeah. I have some close women like that. Sometimes they say things and I'll be like, oh God. I try to encourage them. Don't say that. Don't talk like that.
Well, here's the thing is, one thing I think with men, and then again, first of all, I'm going to preface this with, I love men, okay, and everything, but there's some things that probably they could learn, and a lot of that is listening, because most women don't want to be fixed necessarily. They just want to talk. Sometimes you just need to talk it out. They don't want you to fix it. They don't want you to tell you them what to do. They just want to talk about it, and then they'll probably figure it out themselves. Or if they really want you to help, they probably will say, do you have a suggestion? Can you help me? But most of the time, they just want to just kind of blow it out of their mouth because they just need to get it out. And if you could just stand there and just listen and maybe give a good smile and say, okay, I'm there with you, babe. I'm good. Tell me if you need anything. Otherwise, we'll let you do what you want to do.
That's
it's so easy, but and I think that men are wired to fix things, right?
Exactly.
And so we, as women, we also need to understand that that's how men are wired, and men need to understand that women just really want to be listened to, and that's a key thing, especially with everything that goes on with all of the the imaging and we don't get paid as much, and we're always kind of like a second class citizen. If we've been that way for a long time, and it sounds like in this day and age that we shouldn't be, but I've seen a lot of years, and unfortunately we're still looked down as like, okay, if someone's going to step down from their job, let it be the woman, let the man, because he can work. Whereas I've always been a working woman. I've been a very successful woman. I've also failed many times, but I've also come back tenfold. So, that's also something for that men. It's hard for them to see a woman in control like that. It's hard for sometimes women who are, driven and working and making good money, a lot of money. And good money or whatever, or less, let me just say maybe more than what their spouse or their significant other is. It can make a man feel very, less than, you might say. And there you go. That's when communication is very important, and where you're really working as a team, no matter what and who's making the money, because it should never be a competition between the two of you. No. It should be like, hey, this month, I guess I'm making all the money, and next month maybe you'll be making all the money. Who knows? But it really used to be kind of one of those, because we get tired of being, just that person that's always, having to take the lesser job, you might say.
Yeah, I think a lot of times If the woman is the breadwinner and the guy, let's say the guy can't pay, let's say he can't pay the majority of the bills.
Right.
A lot of times, a lot of women, I think, I don't think they intentionally do it, but over time, he'll start to disrespect the guy.
Yeah. Well, and that's something in addition that women need to go within themselves and
Yeah.
find their own confidence and also understand and listen to men,
Yeah.
because men also feel less than, and because they were brought up to be the breadwinners,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like one of those bipolar type of things where each you have to communicate about it,
Yeah.
because otherwise it does feel like, well, they're disrespecting me, and because they want me to go out and make more money, rather than saying, what do you want to do, and are you first off okay with me making money this time, and the man saying, hey, I feel less than because you are making more money than me. I want to encourage you to make more money. So how can we make each other feel better about this? And I think that's just really communication in relationships, which there always is a lack of on one side or the other, unfortunately. And I think we need to really bring that to the attention, where we need to build the confidence of men also,
Yeah.
because of this. In some ways, the world is like, it's all about the woman. Now the men are feeling like, well, see, now the woman's going to get the job and not me, type of thing, right?
Yeah.
and and there'll always be that power struggle in the big world, but when it comes to two people in a relationship, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about what your relationship is. It's what you guys decide how your relationship will be. And that doesn't and because every relationship that works is different.
Yeah. I agree with
it's
that
it's
a
really
hundred.
about the communicating. And so I
Mm,
can't, you know really, I wish there'd be more communication, and I think that
yeah.
people need to stop, get off the hamster wheel, you might say, and say, look, it, I love you, or I want to be with you, but what can we do to make this even better? And it's always a work in progress,
Yeah.
and knowing that it's always going to be a work in progress, and that, but the more you strengthen yourself, and the more you respect, and I will use that word, respect each other's wishes and loves, and whatever you want, the more you will grow.
Mm, I agree with that 100%.
So
So
it's just, I think, what happens, the pendulum swings, usually really hard one way, and
yeah.
and then eventually it starts to come back to the middle. And I think in a lot of ways, there's still a lot of work to do with men and women, especially in the workplaces, and
Yeah.
and in relationships and different things. But the pendulum swings really one way. Sometimes it's like, oh, see, it's all about the woman now, where before it was all about the man. And eventually it comes down to the middle, where hopefully we'll start seeing medium ground, or an even ground. But
Yeah.
I see that way down in the future. So, and then, for the world to see that. So
Yeah.
right now we can only do that in our own home, in our own
Exactly.
place.
Yeah.
And that's where you should be concerned with. There should be no comparing each other,
No.
comparing myself to my spouse or significant other. Um, we're just here to move forward and live the best life we possibly can, and try to be as happy as we can. And it's no way you're going to be happy every minute. And we always have to
No.
understand that too.
No. No one. Then that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Who said that we're supposed to be happy all the time anyway?
Well, it's hard to be, especially with all this stuff going on all the time. And, it's like everybody's uh, made up differently, right?
Yeah.
And certain, it's like in this pandemic, there's some people that, when COVID hit and this pandemic hit, there was like, whoa, I'm loving all this. I don't have to see people. I don't have to do people. And there's other people that are like, oh my God, I can't. I'm having anxiety because I can't see my friends. So it's all how you relate to anything. And then I think sometimes we have to stop and think about our own stuff. Like, what is wrong with you? Can't you pivot? Or why is this anxiety so big? What's the problem? Most of the time they're scared to be with themselves.
Yep. Yep.
Being alone, it's like, oh my God, I got to be by myself. I actually might find out something about myself. you know, so there's that too. So it's complicated, you might say.
Yeah. So how did you, through all your trials and tribulations, how did you develop confidence, your own confidence? How did you
Well,
get
I'm
through all that?
continually developing it. Okay, even though I'm just launching a new app called Confident You. Um, it's a daily struggle. I mean, let's be real. No, I can get triggered many times, and I just have to. Once I've actually took the time to know what my triggers were and to understand who I am and start learning more about me, and that's being by yourself and without worrying about being around anybody else and having to do things, because most people are around other people because they're trying to distract themselves from anything, right?
Yeah.
But the more I was by myself, the more I could see, like, hey, you're a little negative in this area. Why are you so negative? Or why don't you want to make that phone call? Why are you procrastinating? What are you fearful of? It's really asking the questions of yourself and saying you're being either like, well, you're being stupid. You shouldn't tell that to yourself, by the way. But you're being, why are you thinking this way?
Yeah.
And once you start acknowledging that kind of stuff, then you can start working on building those confidences and pushing through those fears. But we have to acknowledge that we have those fears, and it can be fears in different parts of our lives. Some people are really confident in one area. Like, here's a good example. I was always pretty confident in my business world in most cases, because I just kind of powered through and just pushed through my fears. But when it came to relationships, I was like, meek and the such. And I had to start figuring out, why is that? And acknowledge the fact that I needed to grow, get some confidence in this area and be able to say no, and create some boundaries for myself in relationships. That's one of the reasons that I kept moving through relationships so much, and having different, marriages and the such, so you have to take in your own information and acknowledge your own negatives. And that's not easy for people to do.
No, it's not.
People don't want to know the negative truth about themselves. It's like, oh my God, what do you mean? I'm not negative. They get defensive, right?
Yeah. So how did?
But it's a constant battle. But the more you can talk to yourself about it, the more confidence you create.
Yeah. So how did the book come about, and what's it about?
Well, actually, it's interesting you asked that question. It's a memoir of my life, being seen and unheard, because I was always considered that pretty little girl that just didn't need to speak. If that was what you were taught kind of back in the days, like, you're to be seen and not heard. Sit there, and that kind of would move forward into my teenage years and and then in my adulthood, whereas I just became less. I didn't stand up for myself, and a lot of women don't. And a lot of that's because of what maybe their childhood was like, or, as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, and if you were encouraged or not encouraged. So you have to kind of look at all of that. But it's a memoir of my life, and it's about certain stories that I bring up, that a man, a woman, a spouse, a daughter, it could be their story. And I find that the feedback that I've gotten from it this last year is that, wow, I can relate to that story, or this happened to me. And I give, ideas and thoughts of maybe what they should think about and what they should acknowledge, and maybe where they're need some forgiveness. But it came about finally during COVID, one of my busiest times of the year type of thing. And I was busy with real estate, busy with coaching. And I said, you know what? I just need to get this book out. So I made it a priority. And I knew that was kind of like my last leg of putting that out into the world and being really vulnerable and leaning into that and showing that confidence that I had in myself that I could do this. And I did. And took me like 3 months to write it. And got it edited and published, and now it became a bestseller. So I'm very happy about it.
That's great. I'm gonna get it after I'm done with this. I'm
You
going
need to
get
get it.
it.
I've had lots of men say they were glad they read it because it also helps them understand women.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can all understand men and women better, right?
Yeah. It's. I always say it's a lifestyle. It's always an ongoing process. It never stops.
It's constant. And
Yeah.
when it stops, I believe we're dead.
Yeah.
It's like so many people say to me, like, well, Patricia, why don't you retire? You could retire now, or you get,
Right.
and I'm like, why?
Retire and do what?
Exactly. Eat bonbons? I don't think so. It's more or less no, because I believe, and interesting enough, my father died very young. He was when he was 68, and my mother died at 93. But she always was doing something. She was
Yep.
keeping her mind going. She was, doing accounting for people. So I think it's so important to keep that brain going. And I want to grow. And the more mature I get, the more I want to learn. And it's exciting, and I want to live and enjoy it every single day as long as I possibly can. Until they get that pill where I can take it and I can live for 200 years. I'm just waiting for it to come out.
Me too. So if people wanted to follow you and work with you, where would they go?
2 easy ways to follow me is Instagram is Coach Patricia Love, at Coach Patricia Love, and then also my website, patricialove.com. Pretty simple, pretty easy, and also that'll keep them informed on when my Confident You app is coming out, which should be any day now. Fingers crossed.
There you have it. Like, share this episode. All links will be found in the show notes. Tell me what you think below. Until next